Hey there, if you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in this craft with coffee filters, and I am super excited to share it with you. But for those of you that have subscribed to my channel, this is Bible Study with Angela, and I'm just really excited to every once in a while share a neat little craft here. So this video actually has two craft tutorials in it that you're going to be using coffee filters for. It's super fun, and I really hope that you enjoy this video. It's just kind of like a little bonus for my Bible study channel. Hey guys, I have this beautiful spring door hanging. It's an alternative to a wreath, which I love because the wreaths always scratch my door and my screen or my glass. And so I want to make something that looks like this, but I want it to look fall. So I'm going to accomplish that using coffee filters. You guys, I am so excited about how this turned out. It is so simple to make and very cost effective. The items you need to make this are jute twine, burlap wire ribbon, a mason jar lid ring, hot glue gun, glue sticks, a pair of scissors, instant coffee granules, fall paint colors, and 48 coffee filters. To coffee stain these filters, you will need a bowl of water and instant coffee. These filters have already been stained, but I ran out of white for this video, so I am just going to use them to show you how to add coffee stain. You are just going to shake some of the instant coffee granules into the bowl of water and stir it in and dip the filters in the water. To coffee stain these filters, you're going to need a bowl of water and instant coffee. These filters here have already been stained, but I ran out of white for this video, so I'm just going to use them to show you how to add coffee stain. Just shake some of the instant coffee granules into the water and stir it in and dip the filters in the water. You need to make sure that you wring them out very well once you have gotten them to the color of your liking, and then you're going to set them aside to dry, and I will explain more about that later on in the video. Here I have sprinkled the coffee granules into my hand. I'm just using Walmart brand instant coffee. Mine is decaf, but that's just because I don't drink regular coffee. But you can use any instant coffee. After I've sprinkled it in my hand, I'm going to take the wet filter and I'm going to dab it over top of the coffee granules. Now, it depends how dirty you want the edges to look. If you want them to have a darker stain, then you're going to sprinkle some water in your hand where the granules are, and then begin to dip the coffee filter, and as you can see, it's giving a much darker stain. And so you just kind of play around with it and get it as dark as you want. If you want the edges only to be dark, then just did the edges. But if you would like the dark staining to fade down into the filter further, just continue to dab the filter in the granules in your hand and continue to add a little bit of water. Then you're going to get a much darker type of stain. So again, once you're finished, you're going to wring the filter out and set it to the side and let it dry in the sun or in the oven. So I've got all of these coffee filters that I have already coffee stained. If you want to skip this step, you can actually buy the natural colored coffee filters, or you can just dye white filters. I just wanted to make sure that my colors for this project looked aged or primitive, so I coffee stained them first and then I dipped them in color. You can see that I have three colors here. This one here is Sunny Day by Apple Barrel. This one here is Medium Flesh by Americana. And this next one here is Barn Red by Delta Cream Coat. These paints I have are actually very old. They probably don't sell these exact colors anymore. So I would just go to Walmart, Dollar Tree, your favorite local craft store, or even Amazon, and just purchase the colors of your choice. So what I did for this orange color here is I made a mixture of the three colors because I did not want the orange to be too bright. So I just took the yellow and the red color that I had and I mixed them all together, and I was really happy with the color that I got. But if you want to use orange and you don't want it to be too bright, you could just squirt some orange in and add some red, and I think that would give you a really great color. So you want to make sure that you stir the water paint mixture very well, making sure that the paint mixes well with the water. Sometimes there tends to be a residue that sits at the bottom, and so you just want to make sure that that gets mixed up very well so that you can get a nice rich color when you dip the coffee filters. My coffee stain filters have all dried now, so it's time to add some color. I took the coffee filters, 4 to 6 filters at a time, and I folded them in half. And then I folded them again, and folded them again, and folded them one more time. And then I dipped the filters into the water paint mix. And something to understand is the more water you have in the bowl, the lighter your colors will be, but it's also going to soak up the water a little bit quicker. So if you want a more bold color, then you need to add more paint. But after dipping the filter in the water paint mix, I left it sit for a minute to soak up a bit. And you can see how it's starting to soak up into the filter. So again, it does soak up quicker when you've got more water, but the color is also a little more washed out. When you feel that the filters have soaked up enough color, just go ahead and shake off some of the watery paint mix and make sure that you wring them out very well, because the better you wring them out, the quicker they are going to dry. You really do not need to worry about making sure that the center on the filters are dyed, because we're going to actually be cutting that part off for this project anyway, so it does not matter if the center is uncolored. And something else too, if the color looks lighter than you were wanting, you can always dye them again. Just wring out the coffee filters, make your water paint mix a little bit darker, and dip them again. Another technique that you could use is once the filters are dry, you can actually take a paintbrush and just add a little bit of color to them. The color is going to look a little bit different once they are dry. Once you have finished wringing them all out, set them aside in the sun or bake them in the oven. That's actually what I did with mine. I left mine in a stack and baked them in a glass casserole dish. I baked them at 250 for, I think it was about 15 minutes. But you could use a large cookie sheet, whatever you have that works, and just kind of spread them out as much as you can at 250 degrees for about 15 minutes. It depends how many you have in a stack and how many are in there. Once the filters have dried, you are going to fold them one at a time. Fold it like a taco and fold it again, and then you're going to fold it one more time, just like we did earlier when we were dyeing them. So I went ahead and folded all of my filters first, all the different colors that I had, and I just folded them all before moving on to the next step. Next, you are going to take several of the folded filters, stack them on top of each other, and then you're just going to cut the pointy tip off. You can see, I'm cutting a fairly small amount off of the tip. It's up to you as to what size you want. I cut off about 1/4 to 1/2 inch off of the end. You are also going to want to place a dab of glue here on the inside, and then even on this next little layer here, just to, kind of keep this all together nice and tight. It keeps the project more secure, and then when you go later to pull apart each piece and fluff it out and scrunch it, it's just going to make your project more stable. And you'll see later that sometimes as you're shaping and forming the ball, you may have to place glue in other places. Once you have folded, cut, and glued all 48 of your coffee filters, then we can begin making our first flower ball. You will glue one coffee filter onto the other like this. And I used 3 of the coffee dyed filters and then 1 of the color dyed filters. And you can really use as much color as you want. I used anywhere from like 3 to 6 colored filters per each flower ball. So once you've got all 4 filters glued, you're going to start layering them. And you want to just make sure that you stagger the filters as you glue them each layer so that you fill in any empty spaces. And it just kind of makes it a little easier at the end when you go to fluff it if you have it staggered well. After you've glued 6 of the filters together, you are going to need to glue your ribbon or jute twine in the center of the filters. And then you're going to continue to glue the remaining 6 filters, just using the same pattern of making sure that you're staggering them, filling in any gaps. And then you can just set it to the side and let it dry and continue on to assembling the next flower ball. Once you have completed your flower ball, it should look something like this. Once you've got the ball all put together, it's time to start fluffing them, and this is the fun part. So you're going to just gently pull one of the filters apart and scrunch it up. The scrunching part is what really adds character and makes the flower ball look like a hydrangea ball. This look is so popular for home decor right now. Whether your home decor style is farmhouse, modern, shabby chic, boho, I mean, this is just a very popular look right now. Once you have fluffed and scrunched, you may have noticed some spots that seem like they could use a dab of glue. So go ahead and glue those spots just to make sure that the ball is not going to fall apart later. The completed fluffed and scrunched ball should look something like this. Once you have fluffed all of the balls, you can set them to the side. Next, you're going to need a mason jar lid ring. And you can either wrap this with ribbon or with jute twine. It's actually easier to wrap it with ribbon. Wrapping it with jute twine does take a bit longer. Once you have the jar lid ring wrapped in twine, the next thing you're going to do is gather up the flower balls, getting them at the length that you want them at. And you're going to take the ribbons. In this demonstration, I just have 1 ribbon, but at this point, you're going to have 4 ribbons. You're going to slide it through the jar ring lid like I've just showed you in the video. And then where I have it gathered right here, you're going to put a dot of glue underneath, and then you're going to wrap this part right here with jute twine just to secure all of the ribbons together. So here's what it's going to look like when you've got all 4 of your ribbons slip through and tied in the back. You can see what it looks like. You just slip the ribbon through here, pull it through, and then tie the jute, and then, you know, put some dabs of glue here and there just to secure everything. And here's what the front looks like using the ribbon. I put a nice bow on the front, and the project is complete. If you chose to use jute twine instead of ribbon, again, you're going to use the same process of getting the flower balls at the height that you're wanting, and then you're going to make a loop with all 4 strands of the jute twine. It should turn out like this. You just want to make a loop that's large enough to either hang on a nail or a wreath hook or whatever you're going to hang it on. You just want a loop that's large enough for that, and then secure it with some hot glue. And then you're going to get a pair of scissors, and there's going to be some loose ends hanging off the back. You're just going to clip those off. And the next step now is to make a jute twine bow to go on the front of this, and this is really the finishing step here for this project. So I cut off a piece of jute twine, and then I folded it and cut it in half because I want my bow to be a little bit thicker. You can go 3 pieces of twine, 4 pieces, 5, however big you would want your bow to be. And I just tied it like a shoestring bow. And you can tie the bow actually on to the jute twine loop that you've made, but I didn't really like the way it looked, and so I decided just to make a shoestring bow, and then I'm going to use hot glue to glue it on and to hold it into place. You can also slip one piece of twine through the back of the bow. As you can see, I'm going to untie and kind of show you again slowly. But at this point, if you want to slip a piece of twine through the back so that you can actually tie the twine bow, you could do that as well. Once you tweak the bow and get it situated in the way that you want it to look, you're going to put a dab of glue onto the loop and glue the bow on. Your project is officially complete. Here's the front, the finished product. Can you see what the back looks like when it's done? Okay guys, let's take a look at the finished product. And the next project is to put a wreath in place of this one that is going to match this project we just finished. Look at how this wreath turned out. I just love it. It's gorgeous. So without further ado, let's get into this next project. You are going to need 7 flower balls for this wreath. I wanted to add a letter to this wreath, and so I spray painted this white. This was a letter that I've had for several years. I purchased it because I thought it was cute and wanted to use it for something but wasn't sure what. Here are all of the flower balls completed. I made 7 of them. and they are different sizes. So the larger ones I used 12 coffee filters for, and the smaller ones I used 8 coffee filters for those. And as you can see, some of them I wrapped jute twine around them so that I could tie them onto the wreath, and that's because I ran out of flower stems. What I did was just use pieces of some flower stems that I had, and I hot glued them into just like in the middle of the ball, the flower ball. So you know, there's 2 different options that you can do. You could probably just hot glue them onto the wreath and they would stick fine, but I just wanted to experiment with a couple different options, and I thought the flower stems would allow for dimension as well. And I used some other greenery that I had at home already. So you really can just add to this wreath whatever you would like to embellish it. I personally thought that greenery was the best option to go with the color of the flower balls, and then I made this burlap bow also. I went back out to the porch to add a second coat onto my letter, so I just sprayed it again with some white spray paint. And once it dries, you can take it in and it's ready to add to your wreath. This is an 18-inch wreath, and I'm going to start decorating the wreath by placing a burlap bow on. I secured the bow with both hot glue and a piece of jute twine, just to make sure that it would really stay on well, because it's going to be hanging outside, and you know, just because it's out in the weather, I wanted to make sure that it would stay on the wreath. So now it's time to start putting the coffee filter flower balls on. As you can see, I have put binder twine around them, or jute twine, as well as hot glue. I just wanted to make sure that the flowers would stick on there very well. They should stick pretty good really with hot glue, because the coffee filters are paper, so it's like you're gluing paper onto the grapevine wreath. But I just went the extra step. So you're just going to continue adding the coffee filter flower balls onto the wreath, positioning them where you would like. I made 7 balls for this wreath, and so I placed 4 balls below the bow, and then I put 3 flower balls above the bow. And so it's just really up to you where you would like to place them. All of those little sound effects you're hearing in the background, that's my African gray parrot, little Miss Chica. She is quite mouthy this morning, so I guess you'll have to listen to this video with a few little embellishments. As you can see, I've started adding the greenery, and I recommend that you have a couple different types of greenery to add. It doesn't have to be greenery, but just maybe different picks. I personally did not want too much color because I really wanted the coffee filter flower balls to stand out. I had one spray of little colored berries that I did put in just now. And then I had just some other small picks of different little flowers or sticks. And honestly, I just used what I had around the house. I didn't go purchase anything new. This was just stuff that I had in my craft items here at home. So I'm really happy with the way this wreath is starting to look. It's really getting full and just really looking the way that I'm wanting it to look. So really the next two steps that are left, once you finish putting the greenery, is to add some way to hang the wreath. I chose to use jute twine. You just need to decide how long you want the jute twine to be. Now, if you're hanging this on a wreath hanger on the door, then you may not need really a means to tie it because the grapevine itself is good enough to hang on a wreath hanger. But for this particular wreath, I am hanging it from a window, so I kind of needed a little bit of length that I could pull through the window and dangle from there. And you'll see what I mean later when I show you the video of this finished, gorgeous wreath hanging from the window. And so I simply just tied the jute twine around the wreath, and then I tied another knot at the very end. So the very last thing that we need to finish this project is to put the letter on it. So the letter has dried after I painted it white, and now I'm going to hot glue this on, and I'm also using a little white like bread twisty. And you might want to consider, there are other things that you can use, but whatever color you paint your letter, that's what color of string or bread twisty that I would use to secure this on. I didn't feel as though just hot gluing it onto the wreath would be enough, especially with it being out in the weather, because I've experienced in the past that, you know, after it hangs outside for a season or two, it's going to get, you know, the glue's going to get loose and it's possibly going to fall off. So if you replace your wreaths every year, then it may not be a big deal. I placed a bread twisty here as well as some hot glue underneath of there, and I placed some hot glue here just to make sure that the letter would hold stable. The wreath is finally finished, so let's go hang this on the window and see what it looks like.